What's it like to run a $450 million company?
Busy, very chaotic, quickly evolving. Um, the AI space is blowing up right now. And so when we started the company 3 years ago, it was just me and two other guys, just building a product that we loved. And now the team is rapidly expanding. I'm now like a manager, I'm managing a lot of people. And just the scale of problems that happen, if the app goes down, there's 500,000 people that are like upset about it.
Yeah, that's one trend I noticed when, looking at interviews of CEOs and founders. Like early on, they always say like, they don't want to be in meetings, but like once they get to a certain level, basically all they do is like meetings.
Yep, I have personally experienced that. It's nicer if you can avoid doing a meeting and you can just solve problems with engineers by sitting next to them. I find that that's much better use of time. Um, but yeah, this impulse to have a meeting is something that you have to like continually fight against.
Okay, so
It's,
you
it's
you mentioned that you started with 3 people. So how many of
Yep.
you are today? The total amount of employees?
So currently there's like 12 of us, and we expect this number to continue to grow.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing for, such a big valuation. But I guess, all the AI companies have like pretty high like valuation per employee ratios.
Yep. Like, so I think there's a reason for this, which is we really have a very, very high bar for hiring.
Yeah.
And we put a great emphasis and we really value talent density.
Yeah.
So, there are like these amazing companies that you hear about, whether that's how Instagram was able to scale to this $1 billion valuation and this amazing product with, I think they only had like 12 engineers.
I think
WhatsApp,
I think only seven
yeah,
actually when they reached
yeah, even
1
less.
billion. Yeah.
And then you get stories of WhatsApp, and how far they were able to get with as few engineers. And I just think it's very clear, being a software engineer myself, that just a small team of really talented people um, can really, really build a huge product and can have a really big impact. And if you just randomly add people to the team, it actually slows things down and it causes many more problems than it solves.
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest mistakes like first time entrepreneurs make. They're always in a rush to like grow the company and hire
Yep.
as many people as possible. But if you hire the
Yep.
wrong kind of people, then doing some restructuring later on, that's like 10 times more painful than just
Exactly.
doing more interviews and really finding that core person that fits exactly what you need.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay, so let's take a step back before Chai. So you went to Cambridge, and then
Yep.
you had you founded a hedge fund. So what was that like?
Cool. Um, so coming out of Cambridge, I studied economics. This is back in 2012, and machine learning was really just coming into the mainstream. It was just coming into production in industrial settings, and there was clearly an opportunity to take all these algorithms, neural networks, random trees, and kind of apply them to a financial setting. And so, again, me and just a couple friends, we got together, and we just started getting data sets, started training neural networks, and seeing if we could predict the price of assets in the future. And after about a year, we'd sort of built this strategy that was making a few £100,000 a year, which when I was 22 years old was a lot of money, and it was really, I felt that was a really great success. And so we just kept doubling down. And so any money that we made, we sort of reinvested in the business, by hiring more engineers, more talented people. The first people I'd hire were all my friends from Cambridge. And then some of them did really well, some of them did really badly, and that caused me to sort of begin to dig into why is it that some people can be smart and add loads of value, and other people can be smart and not add value. And so as you described earlier on, first time managers, first time founders will just try and hire people, just quickly trying to collect people and throw bodies at the problem. And then with that, you'll encounter a lot of problems and a lot of frictions. And it's really about finding the right person to address the specific problem at hand. And so, yeah, that hedge fund was called Seamless Capital. I started it with basically I probably had about $100,000 of money that I'd won throughout college playing poker,
Nice.
and I took those poker winnings and scaled it up to now it's still running today. It's a very profitable company. It makes about £5 million a year, and it's all AI and machine learning.
So like 2012, that's like even before the deep learning revolution, basically.
It's just on the cusp. It's just as
Yeah.
it was beginning. It really was the first. The big textbooks were being written. Andrew Wing's Coursera course was just coming out. Yeah, it was a really exciting time.
So
I
you
was doing neural networks before Dropout existed.
so okay, so what made you like originally get into AI? Because you mentioned you studied economics, so
Yep. Yep.
that's a different
So
field.
coming from the UK, really at that time, and even still today, like most of the smart, um, industrious people really find themselves in finance.
Yeah.
It's kind of is the UK is so much smaller than America, and it's kind of like London, the city of London. That's our one big like tech hub, and so finance, it is an exciting space where you've got all these really smart mathematicians, physicists who take all these techniques on how to model stuff, how to predict things, and they apply it to financial assets. And so it was very natural when all my peers were going into places like Jane Street or going into places like Citadel. You know, I studied to like pass some round one interviews at a couple hedge funds and algorithmic trading firms. So it's really that was just the direction that people in the UK work towards. Very much like people on the West Coast, they all have in their mind they want to do a tech startup or be involved in tech in somehow. That's kind of the culture which I was surrounded by in the UK at the time when I graduated.
So then what made you wanna, change direction?
Cool. So I really, really loved my first business. I had a lot of freedom. I didn't have any external investors. It was always just either my money or the team's money that we'd sort of pulled together. And so we were free to make our own mistakes, make our own decisions. We didn't have any customers. It was just our own capital that we would trade using our own algorithms. And it was very, very simple. And I built really strong relationships with the engineers I worked with, and we had a really talented team. And as I approached my 30th birthday, I kind of just reflected on the last 10 years, and I thought, how have I grown? What is it that I've achieved? And then what would my next 10 years look like? And the way I saw it is through it was very, very challenging to build the company. I remember being something like 26 years old and losing like £1 million over the course of a month, which was like a significant amount of my wealth, right?
And what kind of assets were you trading?
So we were actually betting on sports markets,
Interesting.
and that's just one example. I remember being 24 and not winning any money or earning any money over a course of 9 months or something, right? Whenever you're a founder, whenever you're building a business, in fact, in life, if you're doing anything that's challenging, there's always going, or anything that pushes yourself beyond what you're currently capable of doing, you're going to fail. You're going to be forced to grow. And so I looked over these 10 years and I really loved it. I loved all the ups, I loved the downs, and through it, I felt that I'd grown a lot. And the outcome was a very lucrative business. It was lucrative for everyone that was involved. And I just thought, what did I want to do the next 10 years of my life? And I could keep running this sort of a sort of financial entity, which really just all it does is makes money, right? Which isn't bad, it's pretty fun. And I just thought that seemed very easy. It seemed like that was the easy way. I'd kind of been through all that hardship. I'd learned all of those lessons, and I just asked myself the question, like, what would it look like if I wanted to just build the biggest thing I could possibly build, have the biggest impact I could possibly have, and just really stretch myself way beyond what I thought I was capable of doing. And then with that, I had a lot of knowledge about AI because all of the trades that we were doing, it was entirely informed by AI and machine learning. And so in 2018, 2019, it was increasingly obvious that large language models were a totally transformational technology. And I remember just being very aware, like, this technology is going to change the world and is going to be something that every person interacts with on a daily basis. And I thought to myself, there's going to have to exist a platform where not just a single model, not a huge monolithic model like the sorts which OpenAI are creating or the sorts that Google are creating, but I imagine a world where everyone is going to be, there are so many talented people spread across the world. They're not just in Silicon Valley, or they're not just in Stanford or Cambridge, but there's talented AI researchers and there's talented engineers across the world. And so we'll see many, many interesting, unique language models, and there'll have to exist a platform where they all come together and consumers are able to find the appropriate language model to interact with. And so my initial vision was something like, maybe it'd be like Google, where people would kind of search, I want to speak to a recipe, I want to speak to a language model that's like a great chef. And I thought, well, maybe there'll be people whose sole existence will be to create the best recipe and chef-like language model,
Yeah.
right? And so what would this platform look like? Maybe it'd look a bit like Google, or maybe it looks something like a YouTube, where there are all these content creators and there are consumers trying to find the right content that they're looking for. And so that's really how Chai got started. It was like this vision and this drive to say, how can we create a platform with a huge array of language models that individuals can discover unique content that suits their purpose?
Okay, so, and if you wanna, like, for you personally, how was like the transition from Seamless to Chai? Like, did you have to sell your stake,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
how did you transition that?
Yeah, it was a very, very, very costly decision, exceptionally and extraordinarily costly. The Seamless as a business was very healthy and growing very nicely. And basically, I decapitated that business. I took all the best engineers that we had, basically took everything I could from that business and planted it into Chai, right? So this nice exponential growth of a cash cow, of a machine, a black box that just churns out money, that sort of stopped. And then instead I had this new seed of Chai, which was growing nicely instead. And I remember at the time I was making this decision, I spoke to a few very, very successful people that I knew, right? Two of them were billionaires. And I said to them, I said, look, I'm thinking of leaving Cambridge, thinking of moving my family to Palo Alto, and I want to do an AI platform. So this was like 3 years ago. And they said, Will, you're mad. Like, this is like a stupid decision. And I couldn't find a single human being that would say this is a good idea.
Yeah, because obviously the hype for AI wasn't anything similar to what it's like today.
They were totally they were unaware that this technology existed. So I would explain to them, I say, no, like AI is going to be a big deal. And because they weren't familiar with the technology or the implications it was going to have, they could only see that I was like uprooting everything for just a brand new startup. They didn't understand that it was going to be such a big wave.
Yeah, I guess that's like once you see where AI is going and in the future that it's going to be the most important
Yeah,
technology of all time, it's really hard to do anything else.
exactly.
Okay, so you took the best people, which I guess, that was a blessing because you were like self-founded. I guess if you had a bunch of VCs and outside investors, it wouldn't be so easy, taking the core talent. And, you started Chai. So what were like the first, the early days of Chai?
The early days of a startup are a very beautiful thing because it is just there's no what happens is you start with a there's nothing more exciting than a blank piece of paper because on a blank piece of paper you can do anything you want. And so we would just start off just coding something up and building something we thought was fun, and then we would play around with it ourselves. And some elements wouldn't work at all, and we'd say, oh, that feature really sucks, and other things we'd find worked really really well. And then we'd show it to our friends, show it to our family, and see how they used it. And it really was just a 12-month period of continual iteration, trial and error, and just learning. I remember creating a bunch of like chatbots, which were like just fun, goofy games. Like there was one that it would be like a pub quiz, So it'd be an AI. You would talk to an AI, and it would give you like a pub quiz. There was another one we did like a Kanye West bot, and it was all like these funny, goofy things. And we would the daily active users would slowly grow. We'd have like 10, then 100, and then 1,000. And when you've only got 1,000 daily active users, you feel you can just iterate very, very quickly. And then we sort of really started to hone in on like, well, what it is that's driving the consumer behavior, right? And it was clear that what was driving consumers was being able to interact with the AI on an emotional level. And this is quite different from a lot of people's experience with ChatGPT. With ChatGPT, it's really an assistant AI,
Yeah.
and so they engage with it on a sort of an intellectual level or a problem solving, right? But on Chai, the users they just want to talk to the AI like it's a friend, right? They want it to say something funny. They want to feel like it loves them. They just want to feel warm and fuzzy from interacting with the AI. And so over that 12 months, we iterated really quickly, and we were just free to play around with it. After those 12 months, we kind of hit what's called product market fit. And at that point, we rapidly grew to 100,000 daily active users. And once you've got 100,000 users, every little change, you literally have thousands of people sending you emails and messages saying, oh my god, you've just changed this color, I hate it, please change it back. Or like, the app was down for 15 minutes, you've ruined my life. And suddenly the team feels a psychological burden where you feel like because you've got something that's working, suddenly you switch to it's very easy to switch into a very much more conservative gear, where instead of thinking, let's just see what works, it switches to, let's not break it.
Yeah.
And so suddenly every new feature you want to create, you A/B test it, and it takes a month to wait for the results. And every time it comes back, it's like a small negative, or it's like it's ambiguous. And suddenly, instead of being able to ship three new features every month, you're shipping three new features every quarter. And so it's a lot slower.
Yeah, I guess that's the same trap that Google found itself in, because like they pioneered all of, like not
Absolutely.
all, but a lot of the core technology, the attention is all you need,
Yeah.
but they really didn't do anything with it in terms of the consumer
Yeah.
side because they were too
Yeah.
scared to hurt their brand or to replace the search engine.
Yep.
until, the success of ChatGPT kind of forced them to release BART and like, so basically they like had the technology like 2018, 2019, but as you said, like they switched from the innovator's mindset to like, being safe and passive,
Yeah.
and that really cost them the lead basically.
Yep. And so like I challenge myself, I challenge the team to just say, guys, have this day one mentality, have this day one mindset. What would we be building today if we had a blank piece of paper? And why aren't we building that?
Yeah, just not being intimidated by the success, because like,
Exactly. Be willing. So, there's this famous story how Steve Jobs, at Apple, they had the iPod, which was a wildly successful product, and yet they built the iPhone to compete with their own product. And so I think it's this idea and this mindset of being willing to, no matter how much success you've got, be willing to just cast it away. If you can imagine something that's even better, you should be building that.
like I
And it's a
think
very scary thing to do.
I think Mark Zuckerberg had some quote like that you have to be working to replace yourself, otherwise like someone else will do that for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've seen that your cutting edge LLMs are 38% more screen time than ChatGPT. So
Yep.
did you achieve that just by having like better training data, or is there some like architectural magic going on?
Cool. Great. So with chai, our history was kind of the first year we spent just trying to understand the like the front end side of things. How do consumers, what do consumers want from these language models, and then how are they interacting with it, and how can we present it in a way that's highly engaging, right? And so chai was actually the first consumer AI product to have like this 100,000 daily active users. Then what we saw with the release of ChatGPT, we saw this outbreak of new and interesting language models, right? It started with, Meta open source, these Llama models. Then we had these, Stanford released an alpaca model, and then it really just exploded. And so our mission was always to be an AI platform. And so the job of a platform is not really to be creating content, but is to be surfacing it, to be and empowering and rewarding the creators. And so it was really easy for us to just switch gears from deploying our own internal model to really just hosting and creating this new product called Chaiverse, where people are able to submit their own language models through a Python package. With that, they're able to quickly receive feedback from real users. So users will interact with these developer generated models. And it's really easy for us to see like what are users engaging with, what do users really love, and what do they hate. And so, to this day, we've probably had about 3,000 unique language models submitted. And we just took the top five. And with those top performing models, we then did our own in-house research to figure out the optimal way to combine them. Which now is that's the current trend. It turns out that's how GPT-4 was
Yeah,
built.
the
That's how
mixture
Mistral.
experts. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but we were able to release this 6 months ago. And so by combining it in a very intelligent way, we were able to show that users were speaking to this ensemble, this mixture of experts. They were speaking to it for 40%, 38% more screen time than they were speaking to ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Because like people, usually focus only on the like MMLU and the famous benchmarks,
Yes.
but like in terms
Yes.
of products and in terms of business, like
Yeah.
session time is really what matters the most.
Exactly. And I always like to make a comparison between, these sort of like a Steven Spielberg blockbuster production and TikTok. And what you see is you see that these huge, big budget companies are able to produce very, very high quality products that people engage with. But then you see that these user generated platforms, TikTok or YouTube, where actually empowering smaller stakes, smaller budget content creators, they can create really interesting, really unique content that's compelling, is addictive, is interesting, is funny. And that's what consumers love.
Yeah, and if you just look at it from a market cap perspective, like YouTube is far more valuable than any movie studio out there. So it clearly is the better model.
That's what we believe. That's what we're betting on. And I think that's what we've seen. I think the number backs up. Like this is going to be the trajectory that sort of grows a lot faster. I think it's always the case that crowdsourcing and opening things up to more people to contribute to has historically always worked far better than closed source approach. So, for example, we all use Wikipedia, right? No, but like, does anyone actually use these encyclopedias which are closed source?
Yeah, not really. Okay, so speaking of closed source, open source, on the whole AI safety debate, where do you stand?
Yeah.
Are you more leaning towards like regulation and closing everything down, or towards
Yep.
open source and keeping it decentralized?
I think it's incredibly important to resist the urge to regulate, to resist the urge to centralize it. And I think it's very clear that an open source AI is the safest AI that we're going to get. And then I would even go as far as to question this mindset of safety. For example, if we were discussing kitchen knives, right, and someone said, "I want to make the safest kitchen knife,"
Yeah,
you would end up with not a very good kitchen knife.
yeah.
But instead, it's about alignment. How can we create these things that are used in a way that is positive, that is productive, that is helpful, and how can we mitigate misuse and harm?
I agree.
And I really think that you can see it with ChatGPT. Like, how often do people talk to ChatGPT and you want to ask it a question and it gives you a very unsatisfying, a very sort of boring answer that you can see is there only in the name of safety.
Yeah, all the time.
But as a consumer, it just sucks. It's a really crappy consumer experience.
Yeah, it's funny because it literally happened to me like 2 days ago where I included some picture. I think it was actually young Steve Jobs. And, I wanted to use GPTV, the vision capabilities, to tell me who this was. And it kind of was trying to refuse it, like, I don't identify individuals. But then I asked it, to like clarify the guidelines because it says that it can identify famous historical figures, and obviously Steve Jobs is no longer with us and he's definitely a famous figure. So after like 5 prompt convincing, it finally said like, yes, this is Steve Jobs. Then I tried other people like Barack Obama or whatever. It did that. But when I switched to like people that were more on the political right, it didn't do that, and it was so obvious that it was just pure programmed in bias, and it doesn't
Yeah.
even matter like in terms of politics. It's just
Yeah.
like it always has a bias. So I think open source is really the only way to make this fair, and like as you said, like it's really the safest because you can see what's going on inside. And
Yep.
I find it the debate of like closed sourcing kind of is like, hey, this tech is dangerous, so trust us. Is like kind of why you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad that we're on the same page here. Okay, so
And
yeah,
and by the way, like this is why I think companies like Chai are so important, because at the end of the day, the open source community needs resources. It needs funding, it needs money. And to do that, you have to create a product that consumers are willing to pay for. And so Chai's been able to pay out, I think we've paid out so far $130,000 to AI creators. And as this thing scales, I want to see a world where people building open source models can monetize them on Chai, can earn millions of dollars. And so they're able to hire their own staff, they're able to build big teams. And it's not the case that it's only OpenAI or only Google are the only game in town that have access to revenue or to funding. But instead, it's a healthy ecosystem where people can monetize their own models.
yeah, and obviously that will not be possible if regulatory capture happens, because like, oh, do you have to go?
Absolutely. I've got 3 more minutes.
Okay, so I just want to say like, uh, you know, we have to keep this open because, like, basically what Mistral is doing and what all the other open source companies are doing, like the trend is so clear that we are slowly and surely, well, actually quickly catching up to the cutting edge closed source models. And I feel like the big companies like Google, OpenAI are really starting to feel it because let's say there is an open source model that's like basically the same capabilities as their cutting edge model. Like the value of the company is put in question when you can use something that's totally open weights, everything, free commercial license. So yeah, I mean the incentive is to for them the incentive is to try to close everything down and really use the angle of like making AI seem this scary thing like Terminator like and just making it for the average person who doesn't understand anything. They're easy to fool. They're easy to convince that AI is scary and it
Yep.
should be regulated and banned. And it just needs to be like people need to be educated basically on this technology.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think so.
Okay, so thank you for the interview, William. I want to respect your time. I know you're a super busy man, obviously. So if you want to plug anything or let the people know where to go.
Yeah. Well, thanks, David, for your time. Been a really, really fun chat. If I plug anything, I will plug Chaiverse. You can download the app. You can check out the website. And yeah, if you guys believe in this sort of platform approach to AI, we are hiring engineers. We're looking for talented people to join the mission and help kind of just build this thing, help support the this open approach to AI.
All right,
Been
man.
a pleasure.
Thanks
Thanks,
for the
David.
interview. Have a nice day.
See ya.